You spent years trying to find consciousness, then years trying to practice it, and somewhere along the way, you became someone who is spiritual, and that person is exhausting to be. The right perspective on difficult situations, the right relationship with your thoughts, the right way to talk about ego and awareness without sounding like you're showing off, the constant calibration of being someone who is awake enough to know better. That's a full-time job. And the uncomfortable thing, the thing I want to talk about in this video, is that the costume is made of real insight, real understanding, real moments of recognition. It's not fake, it's just been turned into an identity. And the identity is doing exactly what every other identity does. It's protecting itself. This is the third and last video in a series I decided to make differently on this channel. Just my own perspective after years of sitting with these questions. The first video was about what the videos can't give you. The second was about what the practice can't give you. This one is about something closer to home, the identity you've built around all of it. There's a specific kind of person that emerges after a few years on the spiritual path. They don't lose their temper in obvious ways anymore. They talk about ego with a certain fluency. They've read the books. They know the teachers. They can hold a conversation about consciousness without flinching. And somewhere underneath all of that, so quiet it's almost invisible, there's a satisfaction in being that person. A satisfaction in understanding something most people around them don't. Nobody talks about this. The spiritual world has a lot of language for ego in its crude forms. Wanting money, wanting status, wanting to be admired. But the spiritual ego doesn't want any of that. It wants something more refined. It wants to be the kind of person who has seen through wanting. And that's the one form of ego that almost never gets named. Because it doesn't feel like ego, it feels like growth. It feels like you've actually changed. And maybe you have. But somewhere inside the change, a new self quietly moved in and made itself at home. A self that knows things, that has done the work. That is, in some way, it would never say out loud, further along than most. That self is the last hiding place, and it's the hardest one to see because it's built entirely out of real understanding. I want to describe what maintaining that identity actually feels like from the inside, because it doesn't feel like ego. It feels like discernment, like integrity, like you're just being honest about what you've come to understand. But look a little closer. When someone around you reacts from a place of fear or anger, there's a moment, very brief, often unnoticed, where something in you registers that you wouldn't have done that you're past that the work you've done has put some distance between you and that kind of reaction. That moment is the ego in its most sophisticated form. And the more sincere the spiritual path, the more subtle that moment becomes. It stops being obvious superiority. It becomes a kind of quiet patience with people who haven't arrived yet. A gentle compassion that has, buried underneath it, the assumption that you are somewhere they are not. I've felt that, more times than I want to admit. And what I've noticed is that the moment I catch myself feeling spiritually ahead of someone, I'm not ahead of anything. I'm inside the oldest game the mind plays. The game of building a self out of whatever materials are available. And if the materials available are spiritual teachings, it will build a spiritual self. The mind doesn't care what the self is made of. It just needs a self. Here's what I've found on the other side of that recognition. Nothing dramatic. No permanent state of clarity. No final resolution of the ego. Just ordinary life, without the performance, getting irritated and not turning it into a lesson, having a bad day and letting it be a bad day, watching something completely mundane without cross-referencing it with non-duality, just being a person with the full range of what that includes, without the running commentary of someone who should know better by now. That sounds small. It isn't small, because the weight of the spiritual identity is something you only fully feel when it's gone, when you stop needing your reactions to be appropriate, when you stop curating your inner experience for an audience of one, yourself watching yourself, making sure you're doing this right. There's something Robert Adams said that I keep returning to. He said the sage and the ordinary person live the same life. The same thoughts arise. The same emotions move through. The only difference is that the sage doesn't build a story around any of it. No spiritual story, no story at all. Just this. Just what's here. The spiritual identity doesn't fall through effort. Trying to practice your way out of it only gives it new material. Understanding your way out of it does the same thing. It falls the same way all identities fall, by being seen clearly. You catch yourself feeling ahead of someone, and you see it. That's it. The seeing is enough. You don't need to fix it, analyze it, or turn the noticing into another achievement. Just see it and let it be ordinary, a habit of mind, not a spiritual emergency. What's left after that isn't a better version of the spiritual person. It's just a person, confused sometimes, clear sometimes, present in some moments, and completely lost in others, without the obligation of being anything more than that. And something in that ordinariness feels closer to what all of this was pointing at than any state of awakening ever did. This is the third and last video in a series I wanted to make for this channel. 3 videos without the masters, without the teachings, just what I've actually seen after years of sitting with these questions. And I'm aware of the irony. You just watch 3 videos about letting go of seeking, and when this ends, you'll either open YouTube and find the next one, or you'll close the screen and sit with whatever is here. I can't tell you which one to do, but I think some part of you already knows the difference. What I'd like to know now is what you want from this channel going forward. These personal videos, the teachings from the masters, something else entirely. Tell me in the comments. Your voice is what shapes where this goes next. And if you found this video without watching the first 2, go back to them. They're part of the same conversation. Each one builds on what came before. If this kind of conversation is worth continuing for you, I'd be glad to have you with us.